Sometimes, life breaks us in ways we never see coming. It doesn't ask permission. It storms in, shatters everything familiar, and leaves us clutching pieces we don't know how to put back together. That's exactly what happened to Michael Turner, a single father who swore he could raise his daughter alone, until reality proved otherwise. Before we go deeper into this emotional journey, please like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected miracles life can bring. Michael had once believed in perfect endings. He had married his college sweetheart, Hannah, bought a cozy home in a quiet neighborhood in North Carolina, and celebrated the birth of their daughter, Avery, like the world had handed him the sun. But happiness can be fragile. When Hannah's illness took her life, Michael's world collapsed. His home that once echoed with laughter now felt painfully quiet. Avery was only 3, too young to understand why mommy wasn't coming back, but old enough to miss her with every tiny heartbeat. Michael buried his grief by working long hours as a project manager for a local construction firm. He tried his best to cook meals, braid hair, read bedtime stories, but trying wasn't always enough. Bills piled up, Avery grew lonelier, and Michael's chest felt permanently tight with guilt. He knew he needed help, not a replacement for Hannah, just someone to keep Avery safe and cared for until he could breathe again. That's how Sarah Miller came into their lives. Sarah was a preschool teacher who had recently moved to the area after leaving behind a painful past of her own. She saw Michael's job posting for a part-time caretaker and applied reluctantly, telling herself she was only doing it to make ends meet. Yet, deep inside, she also knew she was craving purpose, something to fill the emptiness that memories often carved into her days. When she first knocked on Michael's door, Avery peeked out from behind her father's leg, curious and cautious. Sarah wore a soft lavender dress, her warm smile reaching her gentle eyes. The moment Sarah crouched down to Avery's height and softly introduced herself, something shifted. Avery's small hand slipped into hers, as if she'd done it 100 times before. Michael watched, stunned, a lump rising in his throat at how effortlessly Avery connected with her. In the beginning, Michael tried to keep emotional distance. He told himself Sarah was temporary, a caretaker, not family. He reminded himself of that every day as he left for work and returned home. But something was changing in the walls of that quiet home. Slowly, laughter seeped back in. Avery began waking up excited again. The kitchen smelled of warm pancakes on Saturdays, and Avery's room transformed from a quiet space into a wonderland of crafts, drawings, and tiny fairy stickers. Michael started noticing things he had missed before, like how Avery would look at the swing in the backyard but never ask anyone to push her because Hannah used to do that. When Sarah saw, she didn't ask. She simply took Avery's hand and lifted her into the swing, pushing her gently into giggles that sounded like sunlight. Michael stood at the window, watching with a bittersweet ache. Avery's joy was returning, and Sarah was the reason. But with warmth came fear. Michael struggled with guilt. He felt he was failing Hannah by allowing someone else to fill the role she left behind. He kept emotional walls as high as he could, worried that letting Sarah in would dishonor his late wife's memory. Some nights, he'd find himself staring at their wedding photo, whispering apologies to the woman he'd loved with everything he had. Sarah, too, carried a heavy story. She'd once dreamed of having a family of her own, but life had delivered heartbreak that left scars she didn't display. She had sworn never to open her heart again, that loving deeply only led to losing deeply. Yet Avery melted that resolve, the way the little girl would. Hug her with full trust, or grab her hand during story time, made Sarah's heart beat with hopes she thought she had buried forever. As days passed into months, Sarah became part of everything. She learned Avery's favorite songs, the exact amount of cinnamon she liked in her oatmeal, and how she needed to be hugged when she missed her mom. Michael began seeing Sarah not as a caretaker, but as someone who genuinely loved his daughter, someone who brightened their lives in ways he could never repay. Still, he feared the day she would leave. He never renewed the caretaker contract. They were nearing the end of the original arrangement. Michael convinced himself he was preparing for the inevitable. But Avery didn't understand contracts. She only understood love. She began drawing pictures of her family, 3 figures holding hands: Michael, Avery, and Sarah. When he saw one taped above Avery's bed, it nearly broke him. One late afternoon, when Sarah gently placed a bandage on Avery's scraped knee after a fall on the stepping stones, Something changed inside Michael. The tenderness in Sarah's movements, the soothing tone of her voice. She cared as if Avery were her own. Michael realized he wasn't grieving alone anymore. He wasn't raising Avery alone. Sarah wasn't temporary anymore, at least not to his heart. But before he could gather the courage to say anything, Sarah announced she would be leaving soon. She had been offered a teaching job in another town. She said she didn't want to interfere in their lives more than necessary, that it was best if she left before Avery depended on her too much. Her voice wavered as she said it, revealing the pain beneath her words. Michael's chest tightened. He had been so afraid of losing Hannah's memory that he hadn't noticed how desperately he feared losing Sarah now too. The night before Sarah planned to leave, Avery refused dinner. She sat silently, head down, eyes brimming with tears. When Michael asked what was wrong, Avery whispered, "I don't want her to go. I already lost Mommy." Michael's heart shattered. He picked her up, held her close, and realized that love wasn't betrayal. Love was healing. The next morning, Sarah arrived with her bag packed. She tried to smile, but her eyes were filled with unshed tears. Before she could say goodbye, Michael stepped forward, voice shaky but determined. He told her she wasn't just a caretaker, she was family. He admitted his fears, his grief, and how he finally understood that opening his heart didn't mean closing the door on Hannah's memory. Love wasn't limited. It grew. Avery ran into Sarah's arms, small arms wrapping tight like she never planned to let go. Sarah broke into tears, the kind that come from pain finally finding purpose. Life didn't fix itself in a day. Grief still lingered, but now love walked beside it. Sarah stayed, not as an employee, but as someone who belonged. In time, Michael asked her if she would stay forever, and she said yes, with joy that trembled like a new sunrise. Avery didn't just find a caretaker, she found a mother, and Michael didn't just find help, he found hope again. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to help more people receive stories of hope and healing. Before we end, here's a special request. Comment below. Do you believe that love can heal even the deepest wounds? Thank you for watching. May you always find love when you least expect it.